Welcome back, everybody, to Trust the Board. NFL Combine has passed us by. Free agency is in full swing. Tons of stuff is happening in the NFL world. We're full steam ahead of the draft, about a month and a half away from the first run of the NFL draft kicking off in the great city of Pittsburgh. It's Joey Bray and Ryan Parrish with you, as always, from SB Nation's Behind the Steel Curtain. Ryan, how we doing, my friend? How we feeling?
Good, man. How you been? We're gonna talk a little later about why we were on a brief hiatus in terms of all the things you were getting into. You were in some cool stuff, but I'm good, man. Just like everybody else that's in this sphere, I think I've spent a lot of my day just refreshing my Twitter, my Blue Sky, uh, pulling out my phone, checking and seeing if anyone else has gone moved somewhere else. Pretty fun day.
Legal tampering period. So one of my favorite days of the year, easily has to be. I don't get a lot done. I mean, like in the way of like day job. None of that stuff's getting done today. Stuff in this
No,
world, in this sphere, yes, this is what matters today. This takes
yeah,
priority number one over absolutely everything today.
yeah, no doubt. Personal, things you have to get done, you might as well just can it in until at least Wednesday.
Yep, because I don't know what the hell is going to happen day two of free agency, but there's still some interesting guys out there. Trey Hendrickson. I'm thinking of who else am I thinking of? I wanted to say Rashid Shaheed. He just got signed to the Seahawks not too long ago. But
He got retained.
Trey
Speaking of
Hendrickson,
Seahawks, Reek Woolen, another one out there, probably.
yeah. So he's still out there. And then there is one I'm thinking of. I can't think of his name. Why? There's still one that out there. I was thinking of Devin Lloyd too. Can't believe that he was still on the market as long as he was. But he got what I thought was a pretty cheaper deal for him, at least with the Carolina Panthers. But interesting day of free agency and what was supposed to be a weaker free agency class. It still felt like there were a lot of fireworks, a lot of fun things that went down. So we'll see what the Steelers do. Our Steelers made some interesting moves. We'll get into how that may affect their draft plans because they have 12 draft picks right now, and they already made a trade and flip flop picks and gained a receiver. So how much will that affect their draft plans? We'll get into that a little bit later. But first, we got to talk about the NFL Combine. I was in Indianapolis. I got to take it all in. The experience of a lifetime, truly. It was such an honor to go. I really hope that I get to go every single year from here on out. What questions do you have, Ryan? I mean, tell me. I'm willing to share all.
Yeah, I kind of just want to hear all about it. I didn't go this year. Obviously, this is not our day job, so I had used a lot of the time that I have this year to go for already vacations I still have planned for my personal life, but also to go to the Senior Bowl. So I honestly just want to hear about the experience, what it's like. You hear about it through the media every year, but I just honestly want to hear what your experience was from you firsthand first, and then if I have questions along the way, we'll see what those are. But mostly, I just want to hear some whatever. If you had to pitch a couple of your top stories from the week there, just run us through a couple of them.
If I had to just like pick a couple of things, I mean, first of all, as someone who has always wanted to go to the combine and has always been into the draft, I think it lived up to the hype. I really do think it did. The interviews were so cool. When I first got, the list of, the coaches and who was speaking when, I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to get to see all of these coaches talk and, pick their brains about some things. I got a really cool story from John Lynch about Mike Tomlin, his personal relationship with Mike Tomlin. And I got to write about it. I thought it was really cool because it was a unique story about how, Mike Tomlin sent or gave John Lynch a VHS tape of like 80 something plays that he could have done better on. And John Lynch was pissed off because he's in the prime of his career. And he's like, why is this guy that came from college telling me what to do? And then him and Tomlin became very, very close friends down the road. They joined the competition committee together so they could spend more time with each other. They were really, really close friends. And I knew they were close, but when I asked John Lynch about it, it was like the biggest he smiled in his entire press conference. Not to toot my own horn or anything, but it seemed like he really enjoyed that someone asked him about Mike Tomlin and he got to talk about, and he was, happy that Tomlin got to go out on his own terms. So that was one of the highlights of my week because I thought that was the best answer to any question I got. For those of you that know me pretty well, I'm a huge fan of Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. I love those two. And Ben Johnson, getting to ask him a question was really, really cool because he's someone I admire a lot. And just to see all the prospects up close, like the access is really, really cool for all of the media. It's like any media scrum. Some of them are bigger. The Fernando Mendoza one was kind of crazy. Makai Lemon was a lot of fun to get in his scrum. Some of my favorites in the draft, but it was such cool access. It's such a unique opportunity for people like me. And there were a lot of them there who, were going for the first time and, they do this part time right now, but they want to make it full time. And it was really cool to meet all of those like minded people. And I got to do that a lot at the Senior Bowl. And it's given me a lot of hope for my future and, things that I want to accomplish and things that I want to do. It was just such a unique experience. And again, I want to do it every single year. I loved Indianapolis. I didn't know what to expect in Indianapolis. I mean, like, I know a lot of shit happens there. Like, they have the Final Four there pretty often, but it was a very lively city. It wasn't like a huge city or anything, but got to stay right downtown. There was a skywalk, and shout out Jarrett Bailey, our deputy editor, whatever his title is, site manager, I think now at Behind the Steel Curtain. He booked the Airbnb, and this skywalk, I didn't step 1 foot outside to get from our Airbnb to where the like interviews were taking place at the combine. Everything was connected. It was pretty cool. Got a lot of Pittsburgh vibes from like the outside city, different buildings and stuff like that. I'm a fan of Indianapolis. I saw someone on Twitter call it NFL media spring break. I love that, and I'm going to use that forever. I loved Indianapolis, and I hope that I get to go every single year.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, man. Did you go to any steakhouses? I hear that that's like the media hangout for the evenings is to find like St. Elmo's or some of these other steakhouses. Do you have any restaurant stories from your time there?
Oh man, I mean, like restaurant stories, you're going to be disappointed in me because we didn't get to go to a steakhouse. I know. Dude, St. Elmo's is impossible
What
to
are
get
you
into.
doing?
St. Elmo's is, what we need to do is we need to game plan for next year. We're going to call St. Elmo's up like the week before. We're going to be like, hey, table for 3, reservation name Behind the Steel Curtain, and we just need to go because the Athletic posted a really cool video on TikTok. You can still find it about St. Elmo's Steakhouse. A lot of like general managers and coaches meet there and they discuss trades and different things like that. Signings for free agency. Legal tampering period really begins at the NFL Combine. A lot of deals are made at the NFL Combine. And St. Elmo's Steakhouse is apparently a place where all of that goes down. And it's one of the best steakhouses in Indianapolis. Got to go to Giordano's, which is a pretty famous deep dish pizza place in Indianapolis. That was pretty good. Got to eat there with Jarrett, Mark Caboli, Jeff Hawthorne from 93.7 The Fan. Got to eat with those guys. So that was really cool. I enjoyed the hell out of that because, I've always watched and listened to those guys, and it was really cool to talk to them and just pick their brains and talk Steelers with them. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah. So that's my main restaurant story. You're going to think I'm lame. I know I didn't get to go to a steakhouse. And like, what was the place? I stayed at the combine because I wanted to watch Sonny Styles run the 40. I stayed with a couple of people over at Dogs by Nature for SB Nation. Great guys. Shout out Jared Muller. And Jared was like, "Oh, I'm going to dinner. Do you want to go to this place?" And it was called like the Wet Noodle, or it was literally called the Wet Noodle. And we were looking at the menu after he left. They didn't have any fucking noodles. I don't know what the hell he was doing. They didn't have any pasta. And I asked him when I got back, I'm like, "Jarrett, what did you get?" He's like, "Oh, I got like I got tacos or something." I'm like, "Did you think they were going to have noodles?" He's like, "Yeah, I didn't understand why they didn't have noodles." I'm like, all right, cool. Just making sure. So
Well, sometimes you gotta keep them guessing.
you never let them know your next move. But it was cool to see Sonny Styles run the 40 and do all that crazy shit that he did. He's a freak, dude. He's
Yeah.
so crazy. But
All
yeah,
right. I can definitely ask a few follow-up questions just in terms of like things that I think we all got to see, but maybe you were there firsthand and maybe you weren't, but we'll find out. That's what this is for. Uh First one I gotta ask, you being a big Makai Lemon guy, were you at his
I
podium?
was. Yes,
Can
absolutely.
you talk us through that? Because like my resounding memory as just consuming it from afar is someone's compared him to the snake from the Jungle Book. And the minute he said it, I said someone compared him to that. I said he was hitting folks with the Kubrick stare. If any of you were cinephiles, you know what the hell that is. It doesn't change my opinion about Makai Lemon, the player, in the slightest, but I do want to hear from somebody who was there what that was like live. You know what I mean?
So I'll say this about like his podium, and like obviously like he had the weird thing where he was like moving around and like staring at people. I didn't even really notice it at the podium, to be honest. Maybe it was because like I was in a scrum of a couple hundred people, but I didn't think that he was weird or that, he bombed the interview or anything. I think all of that is very overblown. Like I said, it's not going to change my opinion of him as a player. He's still my wide receiver one in this draft, even though Ryan doesn't agree with me. That's fine. That's what this is for. But I I, I didn't think it was weird at the time. I think it's being overblown by the media. I do see it like, the it was a little bit weird. It was a little bit awkward. But being there, like, yeah, I didn't notice him like doing this either. So it wasn't something that was super noticeable by
Yeah.
like the media or anything. And the way that it's set up, you have like the podium and it's like pretty high up, and then like you have all the media down here, and then like they do have like cameras set up to like record all the press conferences. So that's where you're getting that angle of him like looking down like this or like being weird. But I don't know. I didn't think it was anything weird. I didn't pick up on it until after. All I took away is that like someone asked him who's his dream quarterback to catch a touchdown from, and his two answers were Caleb Williams and Aaron Rodgers. First of all, beautiful answer. Two of my favorites. Great answer, Makai. Makes me love you even more.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think I also think like we're losing recipes in terms of in pop culture right now. I don't think there's a lot of like popular TV shows centered in California. So for people that were like making fun of his voice, I think they just don't know what, you know, young people in California sound like anymore. Like I just, he's kind of a nasally guy, and he was doing the Kubrick stare and the wiggle, so I get it. But like his answers weren't that weird, and he also had a sit down interview with, I think it was NFL Network or one of those types of
Yeah.
programs that was like, maybe it was Rich Eisen, I don't know. It was like totally normal, insane. So like I'm probably gonna date myself here, but I kind of felt like and maybe this will make a lot of millennials feel old too, but it's kind of like back in the day when politicians could be shamed out of an election because of just like minor things. It reminded me of like Howard Dean back in the day. And like the story around that, if you follow that, is like he won an early primary. He let out a bee like really loud that the mics caught. But like everybody that's there was like, no, it wasn't even crazy. Like I think that was just like the one mic close enough to catch a weird recording, and that went around everywhere. And it's like very similar. I feel like it's like, is Kai Lemon gonna drop because people thought he was a weirdo at the mic? Maybe. And like the words like coming out of it were that his interviews were not great. I don't know what that means. Sometimes that's just people trying to take a rookie's stock because they want them to fall because they are that good. Sometimes maybe you're just not, maybe you're not an interview person. They pay you to
Don't
play
fall.
football. So, and I think Makai Lemon's a pretty confident dude. So maybe some people are rubbed the wrong way by that. Who's to say? But I just did want to hear, because like he hit the Kubrick stare so many times that I
He
just
did.
had to hear if it was weird in
He did.
person.
He did. Like I said, I'm not denying that, but I don't. I would be interested to see if anybody else that was at the presser like noticed that he was like kind of being like
Right.
whatever. I'd be interested to know that because I personally didn't. Whoosh, went way over my
I would
head.
tell I would tell people that were bothered by that to maybe attempt to record a podcast such as this and see how many weird head nods you do throughout it when you watch it back, and maybe you'll maybe you'll ease up just a bit.
Yep.
But other than that, other things that I'm trying to remember that happened there. Who was your okay? Let's take Sonny Styles out of it. He obviously dominated the whole show, as everyone kind of thought he would. Outside of his performance at the combine, who were some of the ones that you maybe saw in person that stuck with you?
I wanted to tell you about this one because you mentioned him in your Draft Gems series, and then I did my mock draft him going first round. I think Omar Cooper is a lock to go first round, man. He was all of the buzz at the combine. People saying he nailed the interviews. He had a really strong workout. He was, the next top receiver that, actually participated and did a little bit at the combine. And he was awesome. He feels like someone that's the complete package. They used him all over the place at Indiana, caught 13 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards, all of that good stuff. I think Omar Cooper is going night one. I think we've severely underestimated how many receivers are going to go night one. We always knew that there was that top tier of Tyson, Lemon, and Tate. I feel like Omar Cooper is a lot of people's wide receiver four at this point in the process. And I can't say that I blame them. Unfortunately, he's no longer a gem, a well kept secret. He's a solid first rounder. He was someone that really, really stuck with me. Other than that, man, I'm trying to think who stood out. Jacob Rodriguez tested about how I thought we would. I feel like we always mention him in
I,
these.
I I was never fully understanding why people were like acting like maybe he wasn't some athletic like marvel.
Yeah,
Like his whole thing is like the only reason that you like knock him is because he's like 5'11", but like he weighs about what a modern NFL linebacker does. I don't know why we were acting like he was so small. He's like, that's just what they look. He's not Sonny Styles. There's not a lot of Sonny Styles out there. Like Tremaine Edmonds is like maybe the most comparable size wise, and he got paid again today. But he's not he's not exactly the same type of player like comp wise. So I don't know. But the modern linebacker is not that huge. So I just was wondering if like maybe he just his GPS data was not great so like maybe he was like a 4.6 guy or a 4.7 guy, but like even that I'm like I don't know how much of that I care about because like he moves on the football field well and he makes impact plays around the ball. So I get that. I do want to touch a little more on Omar Cooper though because he's gonna be the most fascinating like watch for me on draft night
oh
where
yeah,
he actually
absolutely.
shows because this is a guy who I think we came into the year, he's on nobody's radar. I mean, he had a really good season for Indiana standards last year, but I don't know anybody who was like Omar Cooper's the guy that's going to be like everyone's favorite wide receiver come the come the draft. And he has an obviously a great year. You look at his stats and it's like, they're a run heavy, option heavy offense. I think that, he still didn't have like the most impressive statistical output ever. I think he had a really great season there. So I'm curious to see because like you're always wary when, you're coming into a draft with a prospect like this because every year there's players that like everybody that is not a GM or a scout loves loves, loves, loves. But then we get to draft night and we find out everybody loved them online a lot more than what the NFL thought their actual value was. And so I'm still hesitant with that again because of these wide receivers. Because like I don't know, I think he could go in the first. I even have a wild take that like maybe one of the top three goes after him based on red flags the teams might have and maybe looking for a stylist. So maybe we're in for a surprise where he goes higher than any of us imagined and goes before one of the crowned three that we thought would go first. So like I think that's in realm of play, but I also feel like up until like the national championship, there was a chance that he was going to be like a day two guy. And now it's like, okay, he could be a day. Then it was like maybe he's like a top 40 guy. But man, if online can be believed, he's like, we're looking at a guy that's probably after, I would say, like 25, somewhere on past that. I don't know. I'd be curious to relook at the board, and maybe we should do that at some point
You know
because I
what?
know a lot of those teams and the back end did make moves.
I was
So I am
thinking
curious to do that.
the Omar Cooper spot, like where it starts to be like, oh shit, he could go this early, is the Raiders at 14. Doesn't that make all the sense in the world? I mean, the Raiders made
It
moves at
could. It
pretty
could.
much every position. I mean, they signed Jalen Naylor, but who are we kidding there? He's obviously not going to be like your one. He's a solid player, but
If I'm the Raiders,
14 feels rich for Omar Cooper,
it
but
does, and I
you're getting
think
Mendoza and I don't know. That's just like my 2 cents. That's where like the earliest I think you'd possibly go is 14.
I'm
That's if
I'm
all
thinking
three of those guys are off
14.
the board already.
If I'm the Raiders and the moves they've made, if I'm sitting at 14, I think I'm honestly very seriously considering Ione or my favorite offensive tackle on the board.
Yeah.
Because they made a lot of moves at corner where I don't think that necessarily has to be the first round pick now either. Maybe they go edge. It could be an edge guy too. I think that's like it's probably going to be edge or offensive line, and then receiver. Sure, I definitely see the narrative, and it would be the most like old like Raiders of the past 30 years move to go for the receiver before building out the rest. But I don't know if they've done the little PR tour about how they're really humble this time coming into it, and they're really thinking. So like I don't know, I forget the exact verbiage that was used in an article that was circulating around about what their approach was going to be. But even the moves they're making today, it's a pretty like meat and potatoes style approach to what, they're not necessarily like gonna change overnight, I don't think. But the moves they're making at least kind of make sense, which I think is a first for the Raiders in a long time. So, you know, I find it interesting. But like, yeah, Omar Cooper, is he I think there's no way he falls out of the top 40 is like a lock. So like
Yeah,
if he
it's
falls out of the first
no way.
round, I'm not shocked. But at the same time, it has reached the point where it's like, yeah, he could go as high as 14 if the Raiders are like, yeah, let's just get our quarterback, get him a receiver he's already got chemistry with. I could see the argument for that.
Our favorite guy, Kyle Lewis. I did also hear a good bit of buzz around him.
Ooh.
Particularly, you know who the team is that loves Kyle Lewis?
I would have said before today the Panthers, but now I don't know.
The Seahawks. The
Ooh.
Seahawks. Mike McDonald is in love with Kyle Lewis.
Well, they did just lose
I
Kobe
love this.
Bryant. They
I
did just lose
love
Kobe
this.
Bryant, and what if they're thinking of sticking like I don't know. I don't know if you would sticky man worry back there the same way, but they still have Julian Love, so then they could make I don't know. That's intriguing, and that makes a lot of sense
He's so fun.
considering he has a type
I mean,
and its versatility.
that's the coach you'd want him to go to as well.
I mean, I want him to come to Pittsburgh, obviously, but
I do too.
but
But
at the same time,
as Kyle Lewis guys who want the best for him, we'd
yeah.
love to
And
see
I
him in
don't,
black and
yeah,
gold.
want the best for him. And at the same time, as much as I would like him in Pittsburgh, I don't want him in Pittsburgh for as high as maybe now he goes after all the hype that he's been building this process.
He's another one, man. I don't know, dude. I don't know how early he's
If
going
you
to go
told me
in
he
there.
goes in round 3, I'd be like, yeah. If you
Yeah.
told me he doesn't get picked until round 6, I'd be like, yeah.
That may again, he may be one that's like he got a lot of Senior Bowl hype. So like you never know with those guys. You made a really good point. Maybe online is higher than consensus on him. I heard Mike McDonald really likes him and wants to take him. But like
Mhm.
again, if he
Hey,
goes third,
the
yeah,
Steelers loved Malik Willis back in the day, you know?
they did. And you know what? They should have. They should have loved Malik Willis. They should have agreed with online. Malik Willis signed a deal 10 times bigger than Kenny Pickett's contract today.
Uh-huh.
10 times.
Kenny Pickett on his 15.
Hey, only first round pick ever to do that.
And it's like, what's crazy is we like if things had gone right, we'd be deciding on his he would be deciding his 5th year right now. Like,
That feels
like it's
that's a
bad shit.
fever dream. That's wild.
And now he's been on 5 teams, but that's crazy. But that feels like a good place as any to segue into our little bit of Steelers talk we wanted to do before we potentially explore some other things that have happened in free agency and moves we would make. But uh, starting with what the Steelers have done today, where's a good place to start? I think a good place to start is before we delve into new guys, let's talk about who the Steelers have seemingly decided to let leave and who they brought back. What were your thoughts waking up to the news that it was Asante Samuel Jr. and not James Pierre that was coming back?
Well, like you said, I think we were in agreement that it felt like they were going to bring back one of Samuel and Pierre, and I was on the Samuel side of that. I just feel like there's more upside with him. Like I know he's coming off the major surgery, but I thought he was good. The little bit he played with James Pierre, I just don't think the Steelers ever viewed him like as highly as maybe as some other teams did after he started to play well. Like he was kicking around on the team for like 4 years on and off the practice squad. He got cut the beginning of this season. They bring him back. He starts to play well. I get the Pittsburgh connection with Gerald Alexander, the defensive backs coach of the Vikings now. He goes there and, reunites with him. So I guess I get that connection, but it didn't feel like the Steelers were ever seriously going to give James Pierre any kind of serious money. And Asante Samuel Jr. for 1 year, $4 million. That felt like a good deal. I was still like, man, I'd like to see him go out and sign somebody. Then they went out and got Jamel Dean, which I love that. But we'll get into that in a little bit, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll talk about him in a little bit. But yeah, honestly, I was kind of on the other side of that. I get the argument for Samuel being the younger guy. And like, again, for 4 million for a year, like, I'm not going to be mad about it. I do feel like people are slotting him in as a starter already. And I don't think, and some of that true was before, before the Dean signing, and then post Dean signing, I thought that I saw a lot of people saying, well, that means Jalen Ramsey's going to be the safety and Sam will be our starting nickel. And I'm not sure I'm really ready to say that. He didn't actually play that much for us once he was available. He had a couple starts while they were really, really short on cornerback health. But then as soon as like some of those guys got healthy, he got relegated back to not really playing more than like 15 snaps a game. And I don't know. I'm glad he's around in that I think that he's got the NFL pedigree. I think that he's at least a league average player. And for depth, that's fine. Like I would feel much better, say, having Asante Samuel Jr. as our cornerback five than Trice Jr. at this stage as our cornerback five. So like, assuming more moves are coming, I do have no problem with it. But I don't know. He's an iffy tackler. The neck injury scares me. The spinal fusion, he might be fine, but that's the type of thing where it's like he hurts it again and he might be career ending. Like, and that could happen at any time.
Yeah.
And also on top of it, James Pierre was really, really good. I don't think we were, like you said, I don't think he was ever going to get a huge contract. But I saw I saw a chart today where it's like, here's like the average separation and the average yards per route run and like this whole thing. And it was like James Pierre was like in the dots with all the like cornerbacks you would want him to be around. Uh, and I think it was something too about like run support. And I don't know. He's not the best tackler in the world either, but I don't know. I'm glad he got paid elsewhere. The Gerald
Good for him.
Alexander makes sense. I probably would have rather had him back, but can't be too mad. And I think that's another good way to lean into a couple of people that were also let go, like Kenneth Gainwell, who I know a lot of Steelers fans are upset that he left. And we also brought in a new player at his position. I'm less upset about that one. We'll put it that way. I like Kenneth Gainwell as a player. I think he's very talented. I don't think he makes sense with the timeline. I know the Steelers are still making win now type moves, but I'm just having a hard time seeing how Kenneth Gainwell is going to get the Steelers to a championship and also still be healthy when they find a quarterback and like young and what he was last year. Like there's a solid chance he never has another season like last year. So
Yeah. This was always his chance to like get the bag. And I'm happy he got paid in Tampa Bay. I think it actually speaks
exactly.
volumes that Tampa Bay was willing to go out and shell 7 per year on another running back. When you have Bucky Irving, who I think everybody views Bucky Irving pretty highly, but he was injured a long time last year. For them to go out and get a Gainwell and seemingly let Rashad White go, who I think, Rashad White, he did make sense for the Steelers for a couple of hours, I guess. But they went Rico Dowdle, who I like that complete opposite player that Kenneth Gainwell is. And it seems like Jalen Warren's going to absorb more of that receiving work, which I agree with. I know that Gainwell was phenomenal at pass catcher, obviously, but that always felt like, that was something Warren could have done.
And Dowdle's not that negative as a receiver either.
No.
So maybe as a pass blocker, but not as a receiver.
Yeah, that's a kind of, I don't know. Rodgers is not going to like Rico Dowdle's pass blocking.
If Rodgers is back.
Rodgers is going to be back. Do you think there's any sliver of them that's even considering a Kyler Murray or anything like that?
I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to say because one, it's like I don't have a read on McCarthy. He's new, like so that changes the math a lot. If this was Mike Tomlin, I would be like, yeah, it's going to be Rodgers again. But now that it's McCarthy, I don't know. It's hard to say. I can equally envision a scenario where in a few months, right before OTAs, we figure out that Rodgers is the guy and they've made no moves, and then it's like okay, but at the same time, they're reportedly sniffing around. Is the lingo being thrown around by Garfolio, I believe, is the one who was using that.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm not going to say that they aren't exploring their options. They probably are. We're not insiders, so we don't really know exactly what's going down. I think that there are a couple guys who are not exciting, but Aaron Rodgers isn't an exciting option. So, like, if they feel like they want to not repeat the experiment that they already know didn't work out, I can't fault them for that. The name I keep floating around that I know people hate, but I'm like, it would make a lot of sense stylistically is Geno Smith. I think you can get him. I think you can get him for the vet minimum similar to what you could get Kyler for. I don't know I don't know his situation exactly if it's the same way because like he wasn't getting paid as much as Kyler, obviously, even though he did sign an extension. But, he's a guy where I'm like, he throws to the middle of the field. He reads progressions, and his biggest knock is that he can be turnover prone. I would say he was fairly clean, and you could live with them in in Seattle, and then he goes to Vegas and has this disaster year. And part of me goes, I don't like again. I don't think he's going to be a franchise savior. I don't put in the papers that I think Geno Smith is the best quarterback ever. Don't say that. But at the same time, I do feel like as fans, we tend to like see an end result that we weren't actually watching the day to day and draw these very resounding conclusions on. And I just want to say the Raiders were arguably the worst offensive line in the league last year. For a quarterback who needs a little bit of extra line, I think the Steelers have a much better offensive line. There's still 2 question marks on the left side, but I'm having faith right now that they'll address that. We'll see in a little bit. And all of the Raiders, like when you look at it, you got Chip Kelly being Chip Kelly, doing weird stuff, being checked out, not talking to players. You got like I've heard a story that he would have people during halftime essentially tell the players for him what he wanted, and he wouldn't talk to anybody. So like weird stuff happening there. You got Jacoby Myers was checked out. He was like he had a trade demand before this even started. So he wasn't playing his best until he got to Jacksonville. Everybody else, terrible. Jack Besh, nothing. Deontay Thornton, not ready to be a guy that was thrust into the limelight. Tyler Lockett came late, and he was already kind of washed. And then Brock Bowers was hurt. So it's like you had really poor protection for a guy who probably needs a little bit more time than a lot of other guys. That's obviously a flaw, but like I think again the Steelers are better prepared to like work around that and actually give him some protection. And he can I don't know access the middle of the field, which again for a guy who lifelong Steelers fan, last time we threw the middle field was probably before 2021. So, I'm just waiting for us to use the whole field again.
Listen,
and that won't be Kyler Murray.
As a WVU guy, growing up in Morgantown, going to Geno Smith's games, I'd love to see it. It wouldn't be something that would make me jump out of my seat. Oh my goodness, Geno Smith's my quarterback.
It's a 1-year bridge.
It's a 1-year bridge. It's fine. It's fine. Also, I didn't even get to talk about this on my combine thing. Did you see Davison Igbinosun, one of your guys, got to ask him a question about who his toughest receiver was to guard at Ohio State, because he played with a lot of them. Jackson Jigba, all those guys. So I was like, who's the toughest? He's like, Jeremiah Smith, no doubt. He came in doing things we've never seen before. Jeremiah Smith saw it and quote tweeted it. That was fucking crazy. I already was high on Jeremiah Smith. He was already my prospect number 1 ahead of anybody. 2027.
Understandably.
Yeah, he's going to stay at number 1. Maybe a little bit of bias. Don't care. He's that guy. And Geno Smith also saw it, reposted that. So that was really cool for me.
Come to Pitt, Geno. Come to Pitt.
Hey, Geno, come to Pitt. I'll just,
and I know there's people that are like screaming at their computers right now because like there's not many quarterbacks with a lower Q rating around the league than Geno Smith. And if you don't live in the Pacific Northwest, you didn't get to see the Renaissance. So, I get it. But I just think, when I'm looking at the other options, it's like Kyler can't see over the middle field, can't be consistent. Even when he starts hot, he consistently cools down the second half of seasons. He's not an AFC North. Like I'm not picturing Kyler Murray playing out in the elements. That's not a thing I envision. Although it's like he might have to go to the Jets now, or Minnesota, Minnesota's inside at least. But nah, I just don't see it with him. Aaron Rodgers, it is what it is. We've said that so much. Like I don't need to relive it. Mac Jones, you got to give away probably a lot of draft picks to do it for, more than you really want to, because San Francisco has an injury-prone quarterback, and they are going to hold on to a solid backup that they know they can at least kind of stay in contention with. So like you're talking day 2 capital probably to get Mac Jones. Do we really want to do that for a guy that don't believe that much in? Like I think somebody could make it work with Mac Jones. I don't want to pay that cost to find out. It's bleak out there. Derek Carr has unretired to thunderous applause, so it's bleak out there. Kirk Cousins is shambling around somewhere out there. I'm not going to be shocked if he's like in Minnesota or Cleveland. I don't know. It's not good out there. So is Geno Smith really that bad for one? And here's my other thing with Geno Smith is, say you hate him. That's fine. All our Will Howard folks out there. It would be super easy if Geno sucks for 4 games to be like, all right, let's just see what Will Howard does. It's
There
the
we
best of
go.
both worlds. And then if they suck, cool.
I
Hopefully
want the
they suck bad
Steelers
enough
to
to get
suck.
Arch or Mensa or somebody like that.
I want them to suck, but they don't want to. All these moves today, it's
Very
towing
win-now
the
moves.
company line. It's same thing every year, same team, and I don't want to do the same song and dance where I get super hyped up and like start believing in them because I'm sick of this cycle. I really truly am. But I didn't expect anything different. I like the Pittman move. You know, it's basically a salary dump, and I don't know what the guarantees are. It hasn't even been out yet, but it's roughly $19 million a year, probably a little bit less in guarantees for Michael Pittman. That's a pretty affordable wide receiver too. And this is the last thing I want to say about the Steelers and the moves they made today. I'd like to think the Steelers aren't dumb enough to think that they fixed their receiver room entirely. I am still team wide receiver round 1 for the Steelers, even after this move today. This doesn't solve your need for a young, dynamic playmaker. I don't know that DK Metcalf is super dynamic on the outside anymore. I don't know. I assume he's going to look better under Mike McCarthy. I think it's going to look better. They invested in him to be dynamic and be awesome and be all this. I don't know if he's ever going to get there, but not his fault. He's overpaid. Pittman's fine. I'm not mad at it. He hasn't had 1,000 yards since 2023, but there was a time where Michael Pittman was looked upon pretty fondly by a lot of people. And again, this is going to be an offense that is more friendly than maybe a Daniel Jones led offense, than maybe a, Mike Tomlin, Arthur Smith led offense. So I have hope for that, but it still should be wide receiver early, if not round 1, round 2. I really hope that this isn't the only move we get from the Steelers receiver room, because objectively looking at it, if they go into the season with DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman, and friends in the wide receiver room, that's still like a hilarious wide receiver room. That's not serious right there.
I don't know. I think I feel a little differently than you about that.
Really?
Like, obviously, and I want to clarify what I'm disagreeing with. I agree with you that they need to make more moves. This shouldn't be it. I'm not saying that this is good enough. We don't need to do anything else. But what I am saying is I do think, for starters, I'm a little higher on Metcalf than you are. I think like situation really counts. And it's like DK Metcalf is a speed power guy. He's like a speed power guy in build, but a speed finesse guy in like actuality. So like throwing these downfield fades to him that were like at one point the only thing that Rodgers would throw to him, it's never been what he does best. And so like he did fairly well, considering, like, you got to understand, you look at how many times the Steelers threw the ball last year and how many plays they would run in a game, and it was like a few hundred behind other NFL offenses, like in terms of just like actual plays they were running, because they are a team that was trying to bleed out the clock, have these long, ugly games drawn out because they aren't explosive, and so they need to drag these games out and make them go quickly by running the clock. So we just didn't see as many physical plays, and so the fact he got like 800 yards in like 14, 15 games, not bad considering. But I just think there's more clever ways that they can use him and get him open and get him in space that they didn't do. And without having any like real viable other threats, it allowed teams to just solely focus on making him like unable to like do anything. Like, he's not a guy that you're wanting to spam screens to. He did have that one like huge gain off of the screen early in the season, but like that's not really his bag either. So like not having anyone around him was a real injustice to him and the offense as a total. And I think that having Pittman in here, what's interesting is like I love that we're doing the size thing. Pittman's also 6'4", like 220. So he's another guy that's like, you can keep him out for running downs. He's a pretty good run blocker by all accounts for a receiver. But what I like about him is that he can function as your Z, as your move guy, but you can also put him in and be in the slot and be a power slot. And he's the guy that's going to run these intermediate and underneath routes that we were saying we need to have this so we can unlock DJ Metcalf further downfield. And I just see a world where a competent coaching staff, again, adds a few more pieces and uses those two talents to complement each other rather than keep trying to force into square pegs, round square pegs into round holes. So I think there's promise. And the fact they're paying him, I think the new deal that he has signed was like 3 for $59. You look at what Alex Pierce got paid today, and you go, you know what? That's fine, especially considering the bad track record of adding receivers through free agency. A lot of big time receivers that change teams in free agency never live up to the contract they were given, because we have enough data now to see that like true wide receiver ones are like rarely let go by their team. And when they are let go by a team, they trade them before they leave in free agency because they're like, why would we let this guy walk and not get any compensation back? Like, he's clearly valuable. So, I think there's like working with that market. I would rather get a guy like Pittman who's not super sexy, but is dependable and does have a stylistic fit for a reasonable price than go spend if we came back next weekend, we're paying Romeo Dobbs $25 million a year. I like Romeo Dobbs. I don't know that I want to be paying Romeo Dobbs $25 million a year. I don't know that's what he's going to get. He might get something way less than that, and then everyone will be like, why didn't we do that? But you know what I mean? Like, I think it's fine. But what I do think also is the pressure is off to draft a first round receiver. I don't think you have to now. And honestly, with some of the other needs, especially on that left side of the offensive line, I'll keep saying, I think that it's good to not have to do in the first round. It's good to maybe not even have to do in the second round. There's a deep enough class that I think there's going to be some interesting third round guys. And I think that makes a lot of players that were in that tier of third round receivers who are like, if this is who the Steelers draft to be wide receiver 2, we're panicking, but now they have to be wide receiver 3 or 4. That I'm much more comfortable with. So I do like that it allows the Steelers to still at least theoretically approach the draft in a more fluid spot where they have options and they can actually just play how the board falls to them if they want to do it that way.
Yeah, I agree. All right. You want to do a quick mock draft to close things out?
Man, why not? It's a quick 7. While you're pulling that up,
Yes.
we had discussed which team we would want to do. And that team is the Tennessee Titans because they've made a lot of moves. They have a quarterback who is basically the 2026 situation. We're not saying the same talents necessarily or that the same results will happen, but they are a situation similar to where the Patriots and Drake May were coming into this past season, where it didn't have what a roster that anyone would say, oh, this is a team that's going to be in the Super Bowl next year. In fact, we have a top 5 pick. Sounds familiar, Patriots fans. But then somehow, some way, through a series of coaching change, smart free agent signings, smart, shrewd draft picks that hit, and a little bit of schedule luck, which, as the Titans are going to have a last place team schedule, could also potentially receive. We'll see that in a little bit. They're just an interesting team to try to figure out what they're going to do, especially now that they've made some of these big signings like they did today.
Yeah, signed Wan'Dale Robinson to a big deal. John Franklin Myers was another one.
Yeah,
huge. That Franklin Myers was a huge get. Wan'Dale for $78 million. I mean, holy crap! I get that he played for Daboll and he had a couple of decent seasons. He had one good season with the Giants, and then like when they fired Daboll, it all just kind of went to shit. The Giants offense. I mean, they need bodies in that receiver room. That's for certain. So we'll jump right into it. We'll start the draft. On the clock, 4 overall. It goes Mendoza. What the fuck?
Jets taking Jeremiah Love.
I was going to
restart that. Let's check the sliders. I'm sorry, but there's no way that they're franchise tagging Breece Hall and then taking Jeremiah Love number 2. That's all right. We can't allow that. We can't let that stand.
All right, that's insane.
Move the sliders. Move the sliders. We got to move positional value up.
Needs more.
And put positional value up a little higher. I usually put it at like 75.
Yeah, okay.
Like 3/4, yeah.
Yeah.
We're trying to be real here.
Randomness was on like less too. Yeah. I don't understand. All right, whatever.
I mean, I don't know. I sort of get it, but it's got to be Reese. Yeah.
There we go. Okay. Mendoza, Reese. Now we go.
Okay, so let's talk about what exactly have the Titans done. I'm pulling up a list right now because we reacted to it just as everyone else did live, but there's been so many things today that my brain is mush. You brought up one. So they're bringing John Franklin Myers. He's sort of like a guy who can play defensive tackle, but also can kind of be an edge player at times for you if you absolutely need him to. I'm looking at it, And is edge something that's still, it sure looks like. I mean, they traded for Jermaine Johnson, right?
Yep.
So this whole time I was like, Ruben Bain,
My guy
David
Salas
Bailey.
would love Ruben Bain.
I feel
But
like
like
I feel like
Jeremiah
there's
Love,
what I would do and what would they do. I feel like Ruben Bain to me, I feel like David Bailey fits, but is also like not who I would take there.
yeah.
I would take Ruben Bain. They've signed cornerback, so I don't think they need to go there.
I don't think it would be crazy to see Jeremiah Love go here. I really don't think so.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's just do it. Let's say that's what they want to do. They want to go offense and get. We spend in free agency to appease Robert Saleh. So there's Jeremiah Love.
Wow.
Ooh, interesting.
35.
Interesting. What is the Titans O-line situation like right now? Because it's like TJ Parker's tempting, Casey's tempting,
Lee Hunter is good too. I mean, you can replace Devondre Sweat. Zion Young's still on the board too at edge. We got lucky here. There are a couple of good edge players. And offensive line, obviously, Pregnon would be good.
Love and Pregnon would be a hell of a start. I'm pulling up their offensive line depth chart just to make sure.
I know they have Dan Moore.
So left to right, this is what they're currently working with. They have Dan Moore at left. They got Peter Skoranek at left guard. They signed Austin Schlottman to be their center today. They have an opening at right guard because both players that were 1 and 2 there are currently listed as free agents. And then they've got right tackle still JC Latham. Theoretically, they could maybe consider moving him into guard, as I've heard some people suggest. They might make him stick it out at tackle and see if he can do it. I think Pregnon and Lamu are both guys who you could theoretically kick into guard if you really wanted to. Lamu's the one where I think you would have the ability to say, hey, he can play guard or he can be tackle, and then you decide what you think Latham is. I just don't know if he's necessarily a great fit because he's not really a power guy, and I feel like Tennessee's going to want to be more mauling on offensive line. You look at their edge situation, they still have an opening on the other side from Jermaine Johnson, and who knows if Jermaine Johnson even comes back the way he would. Wide receivers also clearly tempting because their wide receivers are still Calvin Ridley, Elick A.O. Minor, Chimere Dike, and then Wan'Dale Robinson is going to play a lot, clearly. I don't know that you take a KC Concepcion when you just paid Wan'Dale Robinson all that money.
Omar Cooper went 24 in this mock draft. Love that Steelers pick at 21.
My guy, Jordan Tyson coming to Steelers. I would get it. To me, it's like you can't go wrong. You've got a quarterback. He's young. You're trying to see what you got. Just get Pregnon and stick him in at right guard.
I like it. I think Love and Pregnon is a beautiful start.
That's a pretty good start for that offense. And then this edge class is deep, and you could probably still get an edge.
Look at that.
You feel pretty good.
PFF heard me talking. Kyle Lewis off the board. Round 2. 64 to the Seahawks.
Kyle Lewis coming all the way up into the second. I don't know, man. I like him a lot. That's ballsy.
Jacob Rodriguez, 49 of the Vikings. Love that.
All right, now's the part of this where all the guys that we love that were like, these ADPs seem whack, are starting to creep up.
Yep.
Scroll down a bit. I feel like edge makes a lot of sense here, having addressed some of those other positions.
Romello Height still on the board.
Romello Height's interesting. I don't know if he's the. I don't know. He's undersized. I don't know if he's the style they want. Let's either just edges. Let's look at just edges.
Got you.
Because I think their linebacking situation is set, and we're seeing a lot of them. That's an interesting lineup there. Here's, I don't know. What pick is this? This is
66.
66. So there's some guys here that they still think are like a ways down that I think would be interesting. So if we skip that, what if we looked at wide receiver real quick just to get another gander? Oof.
It's kind of a weird spot.
It is a weird spot.
I like Surratt, but early third, I don't know.
You know who makes a lot of I would be curious just to see them add the body type. There was Bryce Lance and Ted Hurst there, but those are much, much later guys. So they have Simmons and now Franklin Myers. So I feel like defensive tackle is out. Why don't we click that little? Well, let's do something we haven't done on one of these so far. Why don't we click that little trade tab and see who's wanting to trade up with us?
Oh, let's see.
Cleveland at 70. And who's the other one?
Um, the Falcons.
At 79. And we're at pick 66. Let's drop to 79.
What would we be able to get?
What if we swapped right there and then they set us I think 14's too much for this. But why don't we do 196 and see what they say? Likely be accepted.
Let's throw another one in there. Why not? Look at
Why
that. They're gonna
not?
accept that. All right. Look at that. We're gonna give it up, and they run to the table and pick Dominique Orange, defensive lineman out of Iowa State. Drew Aller to the Colts. Interesting.
All right.
So we're back on the clock.
So we're back on the clock. The cornerbacks are being highlighted here, but I don't think they just went out and they got Flott and they got Alante Taylor today.
Yeah.
So I don't think that we necessarily need an inside like ooh, okay. We're at 79. So yeah, we're dropping pretty far here where we're now in the ADPs in like 90s and above. So is there anything, what is their safety situation like? They've got Hooker and they've got Kevin Winston Jr. What if we said, I feel like Smith would be interesting, Clark would be interesting. I feel like Amani Hooker's getting pretty old. Maybe he's an option. Is there any other positions you can think of that you would want to maybe tight end?
Max
I know they brought in
Clare is
Daniel
on the
Bellinger,
board.
but Bellinger's not really a. Is Max Clare still sitting there?
Yeah, Max Clare's sitting there. That's kind of the one for me.
Stash Max Clare right there, I think.
So go ahead and take that. Why not? Trade down, pick up a tight end. We've addressed.
Now you've got Bellinger as your blocking tight end, and you've got Claire can be a little bit of your do it all. Let's see here. Running back, we already took Jeremiah Love, so I know your eyes popped a little bit when we saw Jonah Coleman there. But okay, so now we're at 101. If we're wanting to take another receiver, some of these other receivers here I think are much more palatable at this range. So we've got like a Ted Hurst, we've got a Dejon Stribling. When I'm looking at what they have, I think like a Stribling or a Hurst is really interesting here. Because they don't, I mean, you've got Io Manor, but he's not the most polished guy. And so if you add like I don't know, Stribling's calling to me here. I like that a lot.
He's that typical bigger, muscular Ole Miss receiver, that kind of DK Metcalf, AJ Brown build.
Uh-huh.
Why don't you just get AJ Brown back, Titans? We'll pick up Stribling for you right there.
You're still trying to help your young quarterback. You've done a lot of things here. And now we can like maybe readdress. Let's relook at like edge now. See where we're at with. There were some edges I wanted to put in.
This is a Nadame Tucker pick.
That's an interesting one. There's a couple other people I might like there. Let's see who all is on the board.
You want me to filter by edge or?
Yeah, let's just look at edges for a sec. Okay, so there's been a run on guys under Nnamdi that I would have maybe considered, but considering that he's still there, he's an older guy. That's what's knocking him. And there's some questions now about, older guys like that. If it's are they dominating because they're good or are they dominating because they're older? But I think he is a very interesting pick at this stage. And I think he would fit the mold. Like click on his name and bring up because size-wise, I think he fits kind of, if they've got Jermaine on one side, they're going to want like a 250. Yeah. I think that's an interesting fit. For a 4th-round pick.
4th round, throw a dart.
I was thinking like Barsham out of Michigan, but he seems like he went. So why not?
We're back on the clock at 140. Bud Clark still being on the board is calling my name.
But
We
Clark's
almost
still there. Why don't you just go grab him, honestly? Because Kevin Winston Jr. is better near the line of scrimmage. Amani Hooker's still there, but if you grab Bud Clark, he can be in the wings. He can play some special teams for you. And then when Hooker moves on, you got your guy to step right in.
Yeah. All right. I mean, Jeremiah Love, Pregnon, Max Clare, Stribling, Nadame Tucker, Bud Clark. I really like the way this Titans team's looking.
What
I can't
other
lie to you.
needs do they have? What's cornerback situation like? They don't necessarily need it as much now that they have signed some free agents, but is there Canada makes a lot of sense for them. He feels like a Robert Saleh guy to me, but might be a little early for him. I don't know.
We already addressed guard.
We already
feel
took a
like
tight end.
Zane Durant still
took a
being on the
safety.
board. I don't know. I'm a decently big Zane Durant guy. We already took a safety. VJ Payne still there. We're getting down into the range of guys where it is just really.
Ooh, Oscar Delp's one, but we already took Max Clare, so
Yeah. I think what we'll do here, do we want to reach? I don't even know if it's a reach really at this rate. Do we want to go
at this
like
point,
Cario Davis, or you said he was a solid guy? We want to pick Canada, get another duck.
why not? Might be a
163.
little early. I don't know. He's one of those players where I feel like the simulator is off, but I can't tell. I'm not exactly sure by how much.
And 196 on the board here. If nobody's jumping out to you, Zane Durant just feels like for a 6th-round pick, the upside's there. You gave away T'Vondre Sweat. You still feel confident about your defensive line, but I mean, at this rate, that feels like a no-brainer to myself.
All right, make the pick, man.
All right, let's go ahead and we'll pick him. And then we'll have 2 picks left, 231 and 236. And
some of those names that were there are still there, maybe. What's the running back situation? I know we took Love, but what is their situation behind
Pollard and Spears still?
Okay,
so
and they probably don't
know.
need to take it. Robert Henry Jr. They were speaking to me a little bit, but they probably don't need it with that. Quarterback behind him, they signed Trubisky, so they don't really need anybody to be back there.
Lorenzo Styles had a hell of a combine. I know we already took a safety, but at this late date, he'd be intriguing to me.
I like Lewis Bond, but I don't know if they need more wide receivers at this point.
Do they need a kicker or a punter? Let me ask you that.
Well, taking a look, they have Johnny Hekker punting. Well, he's a free agent.
He's a free agent.
Joey Sly. Yeah, so is their place kicker Joey Sly. So theoretically,
we could pick a kicker for him. In theory.
Yeah, let's give him Drew Stevens, and then we're gonna give him a punter, and we call it a fixture team, Tennessee.
We could, if you want to. If nobody else is jumping out to you here, I don't know. I don't know. Lorenzo Styles would be fun, but I don't.
Yeah, I don't feel like I want to throw them any more wide receivers at this point. Maybe look at linebackers, but I don't know. Malik Benson's a speed guy, but again, it's like I just don't think they need any more wide receivers. They got a lot of young wide receivers in the room after we take some picks early. Scooby Williams maybe is a guy that can be special teams. Carson Sherrar, maybe another guy. Ooh, there's my guy. We're picking Jack Kelly.
There we go.
Jack Kelly, he gives you a guy who can play inside linebacker, but he also has some outside edge versatility. I think a guy like Robert Saleh would find creative ways to use him. Look at that. You just got to scroll through because PFF undervalues certain guys.
And I think I'm going to take Lorenzo Styles. Just because. 236, why not? Traits. That's what we're looking for at this late date. And we have officially fixed the Tennessee Titans.
Way to
We'll go
go. You're
ahead.
welcome, Tennessee.
You're welcome.
Can we recap who some of our top picks were for them? Jeremiah Love
It
and
said
the
we should have drafted
Pregnon.
Ruben Van. Whatever.
I
Jeremiah Love,
mean,
Pregnon.
I
Traded
I kind
down.
of agree, but it's fun.
Picked up Claire, Stribling, Nadame Tucker, Bud Clark. We were able to get some really good defense. We went literally all defense from round 5 on.
Well, we went all offense to start, so it makes sense.
We
Properly
evened it
balanced,
out.
as all things should be. Our first 4 picks were offense for them.
Yeah.
For a team that's not necessarily a stellar defense, but we probably just we're over evaluating maybe a little bit, thinking that Saul is going to raise that defensive floor. They did. They made some free agent signings on that side of the ball. I feel like, it makes sense. You let Robert Saleh win free agency so that the GM can fill the offense in the draft.
Yeah. All right. With all that being said, that'll do it for this episode of Trust the Board. Thank you guys for listening and watching. As always, Ryan and I will be back with so much content very, very soon. We're full steam ahead of the draft. I'm very excited for it. I love you guys, and we'll see you soon.